Hello there, welcome to my new tips and tricks video for the Rise of the Soultrapped DLC for Master of Magic. In this video I'm going to cover all of the new things that the DLC includes and give you my thoughts, my analysis, and a couple of ideas what you can do with that. So the DLC includes a new race, new perks, and a lot of new things, and it's the first real innovative content for the old classic that has been remastered. So, first of all, there's timestamps down below, and we're gonna get started now. The Demonologist trait is a new perk that you can pick, and it's a very, very powerful early game boost. You gain access to the lesser shadow demons. You even gain one to begin the game with. So this guy is immune against natural attacks. That means you can conquer basically cities at the beginning of a game with that guy if you play your cards right. They have combat regeneration. They are ranged attackers. They're also equally capable in melee. So all in all, you have a stupidly powerful early game unit, and the best point is you can't even summon them. You also gain the possession spell, which is a hostile takeover, basically. You can take over a unit which has a low magic resistance, so if you're aiming for a playstyle towards that, you can really dominate the early game with that. There's a clear downside to this, though. You need one Death and Chaos spellbook, and it costs you a pick, which is basically only an early game steroid, because all of the perks that you gain by this are basically quite worthless the later the game goes. But it gives you an insane boost, and I really can point out how powerful the early game is when you have access to a unit that's immune against natural damage. You can dominate the early game stupidly with that one. So it's really well written, and I don't think that this pre-made wizard is taking the best advantage out of that. I'd be playing a lot more aggressive, maybe with a Warlord on top of that, but that's just me personally. Play to your own liking. So, number 2 on my list is the Myrran Refugee perk. It costs you 2 picks. It's really costly, but it allows you to import a Myrran race over to Arcanus. This sounds at first a little bit, yeah, what should I do with that? But it's stupidly powerful, because usually you start on the Myrran plane, and, oh yeah, you can get a powerful race there, but everybody is equally powerful there. The random mobs are more powerful, the cities have the same races. Myrran Refugee turns that around, and it allows you to bring trolls to Arcanus. And if you have these guys available at the get-go, it's basically quite comparable to Demonologist. It's an early game boost, but more than that, because many of the species from the Myrran plane are just outright busted. Like, my personal favorite are the Dark Elves, but among the species of the dark side are, yeah, they are all more powerful, and therefore this perk gives you not only access to these, but also the capability of dominating the early game even harder. A clear downside here is the cost. You lose 2 picks, and that's a lot, but it's a really, really interesting thing, and way more powerful than the first impression might give you the idea there. So, number 3, I want to talk about Might Makes Right. So, probably the most crazy addition in the DLC. It is a perk that's only pickable when you have 2 spellbooks or less, and it turns your basic units into monsters. They gain resistance to magic attacks, really a lot, plus 3 is really a lot, and they gain in-combat regeneration, which is nuts. So your units are turning into absolute monsters with this perk. It costs 5 picks, but it doesn't really cost you that much, because, you know, you have, after all, 9 picks to choose, because you have only 2 picks open for spellbooks. Therefore, it's an absolute dream to combine with all manner of different things. The pre-made here combines it with Warlord and Veteran Warlord, which I'm going to talk about in a hot minute, but all in all, it allows you to just go Super Saiyan with all manner of different species. You can use this for so many different races, and I personally appreciate the option here that you can take a complete different route into an early game dominating playstyle. So my recommendations here is combine this with whatever you want to use to really be powerful early on. I just want to mention here that Demonologist is compatible with this little sweetie here, so you can have a lot of fun with that. With Demonologist, you would have arcane troops and mundane troops that totally kick butt, but it is all in all a very, very potent combo, and try to mix it with all those non-magic perks. This is just only one example here, and you gain a completely new playstyle, and I freaking love it. So, the next one here, the Veteran Warlord, is very simple but very powerful on the same side. It gives you just 1 XP for all your mundane troops per turn. But that means your troops will be much, much faster on their elite form than other people's troops will be. And in Master of Magic, experience matters so much. The difference between a 0 XP and a elite troop is massive. Therefore, this is a really, really powerful thing. Also, you start with an extra swordsman, which is neglectable at the first glance, but since in the early game every single troop takes really a long time to make, at least 10 turns, this is again a nice head start into your gameplay. It's not much, but you can surely shift the tides to an early conquered settlement with that, or something else that can give you an early game advantage. So Veteran Warlord is a lot less creative than the other perks that we've been analyzing so far, but it gives you so many options if you want to have a playstyle that's focused around your race's units, and I really like it in that regard. Just keep in mind it doesn't level fantastic units. So, last but not least on the perk list, we got the Techmaster. So, Techmaster is a entire new spell branch, 10 unique spells, and it gives you also a 5% bonus to research. You have to be double realmed with that, and it is costly. The benefits of Techmaster are again a focus on speeding yourself up. Not as severely as the other perks like the Demonologist or Might Makes Right might do, but you gain access to modified baseline units. You gain a very powerful summonable drone for the early game, which allows you to cover ground way, way faster than other players can. You gain an upgraded form of a guardian spirit for nodes, which can also operate as a transporter, if I remember correctly. You gain a spell that gives you faster leveled heroes. It's all a steady pace towards modernization and keeping up a faster pace than the enemy. So all in all, Techmaster gives you a lot of new tools to play around with at the cost of 2 spell books, and it forces you into a dual class play type, which means it denies you out of most of the rare spell picks that you would usually get. But apart from that, well, it's really interesting to play around that, and I have a hard time generalizing that because Techmaster can be applied to so many different playstyles that I really find it an interesting thing to play around. And my biggest recommendation would be to just try out 2 different realms and see where it'll take you, and keep in mind that the Techmaster really is, in my opinion, very decent in speeding your early game up if you want to invest into the new spells. The clear downside that I saw behind Techmaster was that you don't have the freedom to choose what kind of spells you want to have out of that new school. Every other area in the game, you get to choose what you want to play around with, and this is not the case with the Techmaster. All right, that being said, I want to move over to the new race that you can play here, and that's the Soultrapped. So the Soultrapped are an entirely new playable race, and they come with a lot of different ups and downs, but I want to cover here the general basics about the Soultrapped real quickly. So they are slowness incarnate. Like really, are extremely slow in their progression. They grow slow, their units cost double the production, which is a really, really huge burden, especially in the early game. But apart from that, they profit from so many different aspects. For one, they gain a freaking +4 armor, which is so much in the early game, basically making your standard troops so tanky that you can easily dominate most of the more vanilla bland species like Hymen or something like that. They just stand no chance against the basic armor of your dudes. You are weak against magic attacks, though, which is no problem in the early game, but later down the road it turns into an issue. But you gain Wall Crusher for many units, which is also powerful when you want to fight cities. It is such a powerful asset to be able to just burst through the walls like you want to. You also gain access to really, really interesting troops. And the real powerful focus that I saw behind the Soultrapped was huge ranged options while being beefy in the front line. But the big cost is being slow. You're really, really slow. Just want to summarize real quickly so you know what you're getting yourself into. The Yeet is a strong ranged attacker that can summon a one-shot exploder. Really, really stupidly powerful. These guys can shoot and summon. You have the Soul Cannon, which is just what the name would imply, a stupidly strong ranged attack. And the Soulless, your go-to meat golem guy with high stats all over the board. Only one figure in the squad, so he can fight until the very end. And the Subtrireme, which allows you to transport units. It's also a good fighter. And most importantly, you can build it just with the Fisher's Guild, or however it was called again. All in all, when you want to play Soultrapped, the early game is your weakest, but once you have access to at least the Yeet, it's so stupidly easy to dominate the enemy because you got strong ranged attackers and summoners, which is basically enough to tackle down whatever neutrals will come your way. You got to play around that weakness, so you either should get yourself a build that's good at speeding up your productivity in the early game, life magic, nature magic come to mind, or you just boost up the deficiencies that you got during the early game with summonables. So you could go for chaos or a sorcery to fill up these blanks. In that case, I strongly recommend you, though, to focus your income towards mana, because there is always that issue that summon units are really hard to keep up in the early game. So all in all, my personal recommendation is to play it safe, play it slow, and most importantly, settle down a lot of cities, because the earlier you get them down, the better, because your base growth is so bad. And also try to grab those minerals because it gives you pop growth. It's an interesting thing that you can also generate minerals at some point in the game, just as food for thought. Alright, so that sums up the things that you can do with the DLC, and I hope that this was informative as well as entertaining. Feel free to leave me your comments, thoughts, and ideas, because I always love to hear from you folks what you have on your mind. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and consider subscribing. I'd be delighted to have you guys. Of course, check out Patreon, PayPal, and Buy Me a Coffee as ways and means to support me more directly. I'm an independent content creator. I would love to get all the support that I can get, but fret not if you cannot or want not. I'm really, really appreciating you still hanging around, and I hope you're having a great day. See you there.